Hello everyone! Today we are covering the manhwa, The Villainess Reverses the Hourglass. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video, and tell us what you think. It helps us a lot. Okay, here we go! The manhwa starts with a small girl, alone and afraid in the dark. Her name is Aria. She's very poor, but her luck is about to change due to her mother's remarriage. The remarriage was a financial success, with the girl growing up in riches. She was beautiful, but she was spoiled, and soon she ended up being the most evil woman in the world. Her luck has a quick turn because soon the villainess meets a saint, who sets her up in the court and makes her so unpopular that eventually the evil woman is killed. Right at the end of her life, she wishes that she could go back in time and change her ways to save herself from her fate. Suddenly, a miracle happens. She is whisked away back in time to her childhood, and the hourglass has made new encounters for her as she makes her way to rewrite her fate. A maid has just dropped a glass, and the glass has cut Aria's leg. Everyone is frightened of Aria and her temper, but she forgives the maid to the surprise of everyone in the room. Aria excuses herself to find Mielle, a girl in the palace, and Aria's own stepsister. And while she searches, she has a flashback to her previous life. She remembers her execution and how in that timeline, Mielle set Aria up from the beginning to be despised by everyone in the palace. Mielle confesses that she poisoned Aria's mother, and she also tells Aria that she framed her to make it look like Aria was trying to poison Mielle in the same way. Aria swears to herself that she will repay Mielle for her actions and give her what she deserves. Aria is found by her maid Jessie. Jessie is quick to treat Aria's cut on her leg, and Aria regrets treating her so harshly in her past life. Jessica suggests that Aria rest, but as Aria gets into bed, she finds an hourglass under her covers. Aria thanks God as she sees the hourglass as a sign that she has a second chance at her life. Jessica is confused by Aria's behavior, but she remembers that she was sent by Mielle to watch over Aria, and so she sets her resolve to do so. Meanwhile, Count Rosente, Aria's stepfather, meets with Aria's mother and stepbrother. Mielle is also there with her father, the Count, and she wonders what he has brought her from his travels. Aria wants to recite a poem to her father, and Mielle responds with another in hopes of making Aria look bad. It doesn't work, and Mielle is left embarrassed before dinner is served. Aria is set on learning manners and making herself look as good as possible in her new life. Aria's tutor, Sarah Loren, daughter of Viscount Loren, commends Aria on her improvements in her table manners. Aria is determined to become better than Mielle, who excels in the court due to her beauty and charm. Since Aria knows that in the future, Sarah will become a marchioness, she wants to get on Sarah's good side and stay there, in hopes that Sarah will take care of her and be a stepping stone to power for Aria in the future. Aria's good manners have Sarah completely fooled, and she believes that someone must be jealous of Aria, since her mannerisms are becoming so prim and proper. Aria remembers a previous day where she had dinner with her family. Mielle comments that before, she thought that the servants were bringing Aria messed up food due to Aria's plates being so messy. Aria embarrasses Mielle by reminding her that Aria had never seen food in such good state before, and Mielle is admonished by her father for speaking so carelessly. In the present day, Aria asks Sarah to teach her embroidery, and the young girl learns it well. Aria wants to make a handkerchief for her new father in order to get on his good side, but she doesn't want Mielle to find out, in fear that Mielle will start training in embroidery and give her father a gift as well. Mielle does the handkerchief well, and sets her sights on embroidering a golden rose, the family crest of the Dukedom Frederick. Aria intends to wedge herself between Mielle and her future fiancé, Oscar Frederick. Mielle gives her father the handkerchief that she embroidered, all the while being jealous of Aria's skill at the craft. At dinner that evening, Mielle suggests to her father that he invest in leather, as it is a current fashion trend. Aria explains to her father that leather might become unpopular since it has issues in its manufacturing, and she tells her father that fur might be a better investment due to a princess starting a trend with it. You have to admit, Aria is really a smart girl. So sneaky. Aria's father leaves soon after that to go purchase fur to invest in. And before he leaves, Aria makes sure everyone sees her give him the handkerchief that she worked on. Later, Aria has tea with her mother and they discuss finding a husband for Aria. Once again, Oscar Frederick comes up in conversation. Aria's mother suggests that perhaps one lady from the family, either Aria or Mielle, could marry into the Frederick family. Aria is celebrating her small wins. Her brother Kane is off training in the academy, and Mielle won't come out of her room because she is busy building her embroidery skills. As a result, Aria is spending time with her teacher, Sarah. Sarah invites Aria to tea with some of her friends, and Aria uses the opportunity to get rid of rumors about her rude behavior and terrible attitude that had been going around in court. Aria plans to go get new clothes for tea, but one look at her wardrobe has her making a different plan. She orders Jessie, her servant, to get rid of her outdoor clothes, but soon realizes that she cannot go out shopping with her indoor clothes. As a result, Aria concocts a plan to borrow clothes from Mielle. Aria sets all her old clothes on fire and makes a huge show out of not having any more clothes to wear to the servants and to her mother. Her mother orders her to borrow more clothing from someone of a similar build to her, and so Aria makes her way to Mielle. Aria makes a point to borrow the dress that Oscar gave Mielle as a gift for her last birthday, and Mielle has no choice but to let Aria borrow the dress in order to keep her image as the nice, proper lady of the house. Aria arrives at the square to go shopping. She looks around at one shop and chooses to dress modestly in hopes that it will both impress her father and also make him want to spend more money on her. On the way out of the shop, Aria sees a young boy selling newspapers, and she remembers from her past life that he died tragically due to a carriage incident while he was out selling the paper. Aria tells Jessie to pay the boys a month's profit in advance and to buy his paper every time a new one comes out. In the carriage, on the way back to her home, Aria reads the paper and finds rumors on the crown prince. She wonders if it would be too much to have a prince on her side, but her thoughts are cut short by another stop. Aria goes to the shop that repaired her hourglass, and she pays the shop owner double for fixing the trinket so well. She looks around the shop, and as she looks, strange men in cloaks come into the shop. Aria feels as though she is in danger, but before she leaves, she tells the owner to sell his auction ticket that he has resting on the counter. Suddenly, one of the men grabs Aria's arm. He asks her why she told the man to sell the ticket, but Aria is frozen. She feels as if she has met this mysterious man before. Aria cannot figure out who the mysterious man is, but she deduces that he cannot be older than 20. She thinks that he is a nobleman from the countryside, and after some convincing, she gets him to let her arm go. Aria explains that there is a rumor going around that the rich will close the casinos, thus making gambling and auction tickets a waste of time and money. The mysterious noble pulls a sword, and he tells Aria that if she's lying, he will make her regret it. Aria convinces the man that she wouldn't know if it was the truth or not, as it's just a rumor, and he lets her go. As Aria leaves, the noble note of the Rosente insignia is on Aria's carriage, and the Frederick crest was on her dress. One of the mysterious noble's men assumes that Aria is Mielle, due to the Rosente crest and the Frederick crest on the dress. The noble isn't too sure, as Mielle doesn't suit Aria at all in his eyes. He decides to drop the subject and wants to check on the casinos, much to his men's disappointment. The noble decides to be the one to make the casino go out of business. Meanwhile, Aria has made it home and she wants to complain to her mother about the knights that were with her, as they didn't keep her safe from being grabbed. Instead, Aria decides to mess with the knights and have them run to fetch her things to make up for the fact that they were a little bad at their jobs. Once she is alone, Aria decides to return the dress to Mielle, in hopes that the mysterious noble and his men think that she was Mielle at the shop. Aria watches Mielle go out into the town with the dress that she wore previously. While she watches, Sarah gives Aria the rundown on how the tea party will go. Sarah suggests that Aria prepare some embroidery for the ladies, as noble women exchange gifts in order to build friendships. Aria agrees, and she uses the opportunity to embarrass Mielle once again. Aria makes a lovely handkerchief with a beautiful crest on it. She gifts it to Mielle, and Mielle runs away, not having anything prepared for Aria. Later, Aria gets ready for the tea party, and she reminisces on her old life. She thinks about how after she broke a glass bottle, her life got worse after that point, and she vows to herself to never get to that point again. As she travels to the tea party, Aria has a bad feeling about the event, but pushes the feelings down once she arrives. Aria wins the ladies' pity with sad stories about her time as a poor little girl, and she also wins their favor with her beautiful handkerchiefs. All the ladies are excited to hang out with Aria and want to take her out on the town. But one lady says that it is dangerous to go out. She recounts a rumor about Viscount Louvre running a human trafficking ring out of the basement of the casino in town. Aria is stunned, as these events are different from the past, and she wonders if her revenge and plotting has changed the events of the future. Aria hatches a new plan and orders John, one of her knights, to go do her bidding. Ooh, what does she have plans? John has been tasked to snoop around to find out if the Crown Prince is also responsible for the human trafficking ring. He is warned to stop snooping, and for the meantime, it seems as though Viscount Louvre has been caught. Aria sets her plan in motion, and she asks her mother for tutors. Her first new tutor is Celine from the White family. Aria plans to get Celine on her side and to keep Sarah as a supporter. The next day, the court garden is busy and buzzing. Aria tells Jessie to find out if someone is visiting, and if so, who it is. Aria falls asleep, and when she wakes up, she finds the house quiet. She goes to find Jessie, but instead, Aria finds her brother Kane, Mielle, and Oscar Frederick, Mielle's fiancé. Aria notes that in the past, Oscar and Mielle are to meet later, and wonders if Mielle has been sending letters to her brother Kane in order to speed up the meeting. Aria gets ready in her beautiful hair and clothing, and she joins Oscar and Mielle in the dining room. Mielle hastily thanks Oscar for her dress, and she tells him that she wanted to get him clothing as well. Kane suggests that he and Mielle go shopping, but Mielle protests that a guest shouldn't be left alone. Oscar rebuts that he would not be alone, as Aria is at home as well, much to the dismay of Mielle. Mielle and Kane leave, and Aria plans on when she will give her handkerchief to Oscar. Aria decides to go to the indoor garden for a change of scenery, and while watering the plants, accidentally pours water all over Oscar's head. Aria is mortified. She has just poured water all over Oscar's head. She tries her best to wipe Oscar dry, but he tells her that at the rate she is going, she will only end up as wet as well. Aria cannot believe that she has made a mistake this big, and she fears that all her plans will go wrong. Oscar assures her that it is his fault for wandering around without permission, and he notices that Aria is on the verge of crying. Aria notices how kind Oscar is, and she decides that she can exploit his weakness for her gain. Aria takes the opportunity to give Oscar the golden handkerchief that she made of his crest, knowing that a lady giving a man a handkerchief of that caliber expresses interest. Oscar accepts the handkerchief, and Aria has a servant run Oscar a bath and get him new clothes. Later that day, at a meal, Mielle presents Oscar another gift, this time from her. New pen tips. The conversation is going well, but it is not on Aria, so she decides to act ill. The time for Oscar to leave has come. Soon after he leaves the palace, Aria's mother rushes in, wanting Aria to tell her everything. As the two talk, gifts from Oscar's family arrive, and they come with a message. One gift is to go to Mielle, and the other is to Aria. Each girl also gets a letter from Oscar, and Aria teases Mielle and tries to goad her into reading her letter out loud. The gifts are open, with Aria's gift being a dress, matching shoes, and a hairpin. Aria decides to wear the pin on her way out to an outing, and she decides to go to a fancy jeweler on her way back in order to get something for Oscar. At the outing, Aria meets with her new friends from the tea party, and they fawn over her. As Aria takes her leave, she notices that her coachman is not the same man she arrived with. She questions the man and deduces that he is a murderer, sent by Mielle to assassinate her. Aria sends the man away and realizes that in this timeline, Mielle will reveal her true colors quicker than before. Aria sends one of her guards away to find a different coach to take her home, and while he searches, she goes to the jeweler's to find something for Oscar. Aria lands on a very heavy blue brooch, and she is hopeful that he will feel burdened by such an extraordinary gift. She also orders 5 smaller brooches with the Rosente family crest. The shop owner tells Aria that the gifts will be ready the following day, and he also gives her a small blue necklace. As Aria waits for her carriage, she plans on how she will bring Mielle to her downfall. She thinks about framing the family for treason, but she's distracted by the blue-haired noble, who she spots on the street. Aria is unsettled by seeing him so soon, and tries to rush into her carriage to go home. As she boards it, a bouquet falls at her feet. The blue-haired noble is standing there, and he picks up the flowers, claiming that they are a gift for Aria. The blue-haired noble explains to Aria that because of her advice, he was able to save his money from the casino. Aria doesn't know how to respond, as she doesn't know the noble's intentions. She asks for his name, and he responds with just the name Asher. When Aria tries to ask what family he is from, he doesn't give her an answer, telling her that for the meantime, he would just prefer her to know his given name. Aria is eager to go home because the entire situation has made her uncomfortable. But Asher asks to kiss her hand before she goes. Aria refuses, saying that his behavior is quite different from the last time they met. Asher apologizes for being so aggressive, and Aria leaves for her home. As she boards her carriage, Aria trips and stumbles, dropping her flowers and stepping on them in the process. Asher laughs and throws the flowers away, saying that they aren't suitable for a lady anymore. On the ride back, Aria tries to figure out what Asher's motives could be. Back at her home, Aria is confronted with troubling news. Her previous coachman has been hospitalized with food poisoning, and her previous carriage had parts missing from it. Dun dun dun! Aria suspects that Mielle was the one behind all of these things, and she goes to tell her mother about the dangerous carriage. Aria's mother flies into a rage and gathers all the servants to explain what happened. Aria suggests that someone set up the whole incident, and she says the police must be called to investigate. Mielle asks if calling the police is too much, and Aria questions her on her involvement. Mielle is nervous because Aria's questions are getting more serious. Aria asks how Mielle could know how much damage the carriage had, and when Mielle can't think of an answer, Aria cries out, saying that if Mielle was in trouble as she had been in, Aria would be upset and would want to get to the bottom of the situation. Wow, someone get that kid an Oscar! Aria suggests that her mother make a decision over the matter, and secretly, Aria is wanting Mielle to let her servant take the blame for the incident. Before their mother can make a decision, Mielle's servant collapses. The next day, Mielle takes her meals in her room, and Aria and her mother wonder if they will see her when the decision regarding the carriage incident is made. Meanwhile, Sir Oscar's gift arrives at the Rosente home, and the brooches are beautiful. But there is no time to wait because Aria's mother has reached a verdict. She fires the coachman, and she makes the coachman who left his post in charge of cleaning the stables. Mielle isn't feeling well because she's been worrying the entire night. But before she retreats back to her room, Aria gives Mielle the necklace that she received from the jeweler. Later that day, Aria thinks about how it seemed that Mielle was being advised by her maid Emma. While she decides what to do, Aria also sends a letter to Oscar, thanking him and presenting her brooch to him. She writes the letter and flips her hourglass mindlessly. But something is wrong. Aria is standing face to face with her maid, whom she just sent to deliver a letter. Aria is confused and looks down to see the letter that she just sent, still half written on her desk. Talk about déjà vu. Aria rewrites her letter and sends her maid away, leaving her to figure out what just happened. Aria decides to take a nap, and she's woken up by a maid checking on her. Aria dismisses her and once again mindlessly plays with her hourglass. Suddenly, the same maid checks on Aria again. Aria realizes that the hourglass is the key to going back into time, and through trial and error, she discovers rules of the hourglass. Turning the hourglass lets you go back in time once a day, and each turn is worth about 5 minutes. To test her theory, Aria goes to her math lesson and insults her teacher, only to turn the hourglass and for her teacher to not know what happened. Aria uses her hourglass to cause trouble around the house for about 2 weeks before she realizes that there hasn't been any news from the delivery man about her message and gift to Oscar. Aria is told by one of her knights that Oscar accepted the gift, but has not been able to respond due to how busy his academy is. A few more days pass, and a letter finally does arrive from Oscar, stating that he would like her to set a time and date to meet him so that he can speak to her in person. Aria writes a response immediately, and she gives it to Jessie, her maid, to give to Oscar. Jessie is uneasy with the letter, as she knows that Mielle is in love with Oscar. Will Jessie deliver the letter? During breakfast one morning, Aria receives an economics book she ordered. She wants to study hard to be credible, as women are not educated at the academy in her time. Aria decides to become like a noblewoman that she knew in her past life, who concentrated on business and money. This way, she would have a good foundation for her life. Sarah comes back from her travel, and while they talk, Aria requests a handkerchief embroidered by Sarah. Aria wants the handkerchiefs to match to show their bond to everyone. Aria wants the connection to be able to connect her to the Marquess, as she knows that soon Sarah will start dating him. The two talk about their social debuts, and they promise to help each other out in society. It's Aria's birthday! Aria is anxiously awaiting a visit from Sir Oscar, and while she waits, Aria decides to open her presents. Sarah presents Aria the handkerchief and new gloves. Oh! And Aria also shows off a teddy bear with jewels in it to show off her wealth. Her father only got it for Aria because her careful planning of the fur stocks caused him to earn extra money. But Aria thinks that by having the bear, she can subtly remind the girls gathered that they will never be as rich as she is. So sneaky, sneaky. During the party, Mielle arrives and claims that Aria purposefully did not invite her to the gathering. Aria tells Mielle that she simply didn't have the opportunity to invite Mielle, as she was sick in her room. But she realizes that it looks bad that she didn't try, as they live in the same house. Aria covers her mistake by saying that she is thankful for Mielle's good health, once again, looking like the innocent stepsister. Later that night, Sir Oscar arrives. What does he want? Mielle is the first to greet Oscar, and the two talk about Aria's birthday. Mielle explains that she was not invited, and how that upset her. She invites Oscar to her own birthday party as it is coming up, and Oscar reluctantly agrees. Aria arrives, and Mielle leaves. Aria shows him that she has been wearing the hairpin he gave her, and she tells him that he is the first person that she has gotten a gift for. Oscar actually brought the brooch back to return, but Aria convinces him to wear it instead. Oscar gifts Aria a bouquet of flowers, and Aria asks to be his pen pal. She convinces him to be pen pals, even though Oscar is nervous about constantly writing to his fiancée's sister. Poor baby needs to stand up for himself. The next morning, Aria considers getting a watch, as she used her hourglass to make sure that Oscar said yes to her request. Jessie gives Aria her lunch, and Aria tells Jessie that she likes her more than Jessie thinks. What is Aria up to? Aria pins a brooch on Jessie, and it is the brooch of the Rosente estate. She then sends Jessie to get her a watch from the jewelers that reset every 5 minutes. As Jessie leaves, Sarah arrives, and as her own maid is gone, Aria picks one of Mielle's maids to bring tea. She decides that she would like one of Mielle's maids on her side, and Aria tries to keep the maid until Jessie returns. The maid refuses, and Aria asks about the freckled maid instead. The freckled girl is named Annie, and she is the youngest maid out of all. After Aria receives the info she wants, she takes her hourglass and rewinds time, using her knowledge to request Annie. Sarah and Aria discuss their social debuts in more detail, and they dance to practice for the debut. Their dancing entrances Annie, and suddenly, Jessie bursts into the room. Aria dismisses Annie, and later, at dinner, Mielle tells Aria that she can pick any of her maids to help when Jessie is away. Annie is chosen, and Aria uses her closeness to dazzle and flirt with Annie. Aria, what are you up to? Aria is working harder than ever to ruin Mielle, and she wants to get close to Mielle's young maid Annie as a part of her plan. She gives Annie many gifts, a pretty red bow, expensive makeup, and even a few lessons on how to behave in a proper manner in hopes that Annie will want to leave Mielle and serve Aria permanently. Aria's tactics don't work immediately how she'd like them to, but there are bigger matters to be worried about. Oscar hasn't written back in quite some time, and he promised to be Aria's pen pal. Aria wonders what could be wrong since Sir Oscar doesn't seem like the type to lie. And on the day of Mielle's birthday party, a carriage arrives and Aria thinks that it must be Sir Oscar. Who is in the carriage? It's their father. He has come back for Mielle's birthday, and he has brought a young man with him named Rain Pinot. Aria doesn't remember Rain from the past, and in fact has never seen him before. Is the timeline becoming mixed up again? Aria still wants to embarrass Mielle at her birthday party, and when she sees that Mielle's dress looks similar to the dress that Sir Oscar gave her, Aria hatches an idea. She changes out of her old dress into the one that looks like Mielle's in order to give her a gift of flowers in front of all her guests. This way, it will look like Oscar didn't put much thought into the dress, and it would seem as though Mielle isn't at all that special to her fiancé. I know she's our protagonist, but the level of trickery Aria plays is insane. She's playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Anyway, as the guests whisper about the dresses, Mielle's brother, Kane, comes back. And guess who he's brought with him? Sir Oscar is here. Aria is confused and a little angry at Oscar's appearance. For one, he never appeared at any of Mielle's birthday parties in the past, so the timeline might be getting messy again. For another thing, he never replied to Aria's letter, and Aria doesn't like that one bit. As she wonders, Aria notices Kane giving her some weird looks. And honestly, dude, she's your stepsister. Let's not get weird. Oscar's also giving Aria a look, and Aria deduces that he is developing feelings for her and is feeling guilty about it. Aria excuses herself from everyone's company, but she isn't surprised when Sir Oscar follows her and finds her. Oscar sits down to talk to Aria, and the two discuss the party. Aria flirts with Oscar, and Oscar does his best to not let his new feelings for Aria show. Poor thing. Aria declares them friends, and Oscar seems to be fine with them just being friends, as he doesn't want to hurt Mielle's feelings. At dinner, Mielle gives her father a handkerchief as a gift, and she shows off a necklace that Oscar gave her. Aria isn't too worried, as she wants Oscar to be stressed about picking between the two of them. Everyone at the party receives a handkerchief from Mielle, except for Aria, but Aria claims that she can wait since the two live in the same house. Days pass, and Aria still does not have the handkerchief, and she expresses her disappointment about the situation to Annie as the two get ready for a gathering being held for Aria's teacher, Sarah. After Annie tells Aria how Mielle embroidered her handkerchief so well, Aria pins a brooch on Annie and tells her to become her maid, and Annie accepts. Rain is back, and he's brought more gifts for Mielle. He says that the gifts are from his master, but when Aria's mother asks who exactly his master is, he refuses to reveal who it is. Aria tries to deduce who it is and says that Rain's master must be foreign since everyone in the Empire knows of Mielle's engagement. Rain tells her that she is wrong, and Aria is told to wait to meet him, which will happen soon. The next day, as Aria is getting ready for gathering after Sarah's coming-of-age ceremony, Annie dresses up a bit and follows Aria to be her attending maid while at the party. They all wait for Sarah, who comes in late. Sarah explains that she was held up by the Marquess, who picked up her dropped handkerchief and asked to keep it. Sarah tells the ladies that she and the Marquess danced, and that he sent her gifts as well. You go, girl! Aria tells Sarah that the Marquess is a good person, and that she needs to be happy and discover her own feelings first, and Sarah thanks her. Annie has listened to all of this, and she realizes that working for Aria can make her dreams to be important and rich come true. Aria and Sarah discuss the Marquess in private, with Aria explaining tips and tricks on how to flirt and give the Marquess gloves and other gifts to the man. As the two leave, Aria sees a carriage, and in it, Rain has more gifts for Mielle. He asks to see Mielle privately, and Aria refuses, saying that she doesn't want her sister alone with a man. In reality, she doesn't want anyone getting close to Mielle in order to isolate her, but our sneaky Aria is good at hiding her intentions. Sarah steps in, suggesting that they all accompany Rain when he speaks to Mielle. Aria, Rain, and Sarah have tea and discuss Mielle and Rain's master. And Rain says that his master had seen Mielle's intellect for himself. He hints that Mielle told his master some advice on a fur business, and Aria realizes that the Count took her own idea and gave Mielle the credit. Aria rages, slamming things on the table and ground in front of Sarah and Rain. But suddenly, she turns her hourglass, and the conversation resumes 5 minutes in the past. Mielle joins the gathering, and Rain asks her a question regarding the casino where human trafficking took place. Mielle is in favor of reopening the casino and putting a statue in front to honor the crown prince. Aria is not in favor, seeing that it would make people turn against the imperial palace due to the money they could lose there. Later, Aria and Mielle are having dinner with their father, and he suggests that he wrap his fur business up and find another. Mielle suggests a fabric that is light since spring is on the way, and she suggests a silk or soft velvet to invest in. Aria is also asked, but she has a new strategy now. She doesn't want to give the family any good ideas, so she just agrees with Mielle. Later that day, Annie asks to go to the spring festival, and Aria gives her 2 days off. On the day of the festival, Aria dresses Annie up in her own clothes that Annie will cause the other maids to be jealous. Annie leaves, and Jessie arrives. Aria asks Jessie if she wants to go to the festival as well, and Jessie suggests that they both go together. At the festival, Aria enjoys herself with Jessie and her knight, and she runs into Asher once again. He asks her if she's been receiving gifts, as her clothes are very modest. Suddenly, a bomb goes off in the middle of the festival. Asher grabs Aria's arm and runs, separating her from Jessie. Asher and Aria stop to rest far away from the festival. Asher is a little lost, and Aria has no clue where she is. Aria turns around to try to head back to the estate, but her foot is hurt. Asher notices and offers to carry her, but Aria refuses, opting instead to take her shoes off and bear the pain. Asher follows Aria, saying that he would be useful to her. He tells Aria that he knows a lot about her and promises to tell her about him when they grow closer. He turns and walks away, and just in time, Jessie and Aria's knights find Aria and bring her back to the estate. Back at the estate, Annie tells Aria what she found out about the festival. Apparently, too many fireworks went off at once, making a huge explosion. She also tells Aria that Mielle sent a letter to Sir Frederick, and the letter was full of things about Oscar. Mielle's personal maid is determined to make sure Mielle stays happy. She has looked after Mielle like she is her own child, and now Oscar's sister is here to discuss the engagement between Oscar and Mielle. Oscar's sister Isis tells Mielle that she will scold her brother for being too busy to speak to Mielle, and she assures Mielle that the engagement will go as planned. Oscar arrives, and they all talk about how the engagement will secure power for Oscar's family and for Mielle and her family as well. Oscar doesn't look too sure about the engagement, and Isis asks if the rumor that he has feelings for Aria is true. Uh-oh. Isis slaps Oscar, and she tells him to get rid of his feelings by getting rid of the source of them. Oscar protests, saying that he's always listening to his sister and doing what she wants. Isis tells Oscar to follow her lead and write a letter to Mielle and apologize for being cold to her. Oscar writes a letter to Aria as well, and he tells her that he can no longer write to her. What will Aria do now? Oscar has just written to Aria, explaining that they can no longer be pen pals. Aria does not understand why he is trying to shut her out, and she is not happy about his decision. Annie goes to retrieve cold water for Aria, and when she comes back, she has bad news. Oscar's letter to Mielle has arrived as well, and he actually mentioned his engagement to her in the letter. Aria doesn't think that Oscar really wrote the letter, as when Annie recites what it said, it sounds too flowery for Oscar to have written. Aria deduces that Isis must have written it to make her brother look good and to secure the engagement. Annie confirms that Aria's theory makes sense, as Oscar is indifferent to Mielle. But when Isis visits, Mielle gets more gifts from Oscar. Aria tries to think on who is more powerful in Oscar's family, himself or his sister. As Aria knows from the past that soon Isis would be married to the royal family, Aria had been focusing on Oscar to secure her place in society. Aria realizes that her fate is actually in Isis's hands, since she is the one telling her brother how to woo Mielle, and is making sure Oscar stays engaged to Mielle. Later at dinner, Mielle is wearing a hairpin that she received from the Frederick family. Aria notices Mielle's maid looking pleased as well as Mielle, and she vows to get rid of both of them. Mielle is asked once again for advice on taxes, and she thinks that it would be best to entrust them to officials. Aria suggests setting up warehouses near the capital to get around extra taxes that come with moving goods. and Aria's stepfather and Sir Rain love the idea. Rain brings up how Mielle came up with the trend of fur, and Aria's mother gives everyone a side eye as she knows that the fur trend was her daughter's idea. Will she do something about it? Mielle leaves in the morning to go to Isis's birthday party wearing a dress given to her by Sir Oscar and Isis. At the party, Mielle does her best to give herself a solid foundation in society, and so she finds Isis to speak to. Isis compliments her dress, and Mielle explains that Oscar was the one who gifted it to her. Sir Oscar arrives at the party as well, and everything is going according to Isis's plan, until the prince shows up. And guess what? The prince is Asher? Oh, wow. When Asher shows up, he is surprised to hear that Mielle is at the party, but he welcomes her nonetheless. However, when he takes a closer look, he realizes that Mielle is not the Mielle that he knows. He's gotten Aria and Mielle mixed up, and he believed that Aria's name was Mielle. He wonders where Aria is while everyone else tries to figure out what their relationship could possibly be. What are we going to do now? Prince Asher is finally getting caught up on who exactly he's been meeting and talking to. Turns out, he has thought that Aria was Mielle this entire time. He is amazed that Aria has learned so much about the aristocracy in such a short time, and he is impressed that she is nothing like the rumors that he has heard about her. Asher actually planned to go to Lady Isis's birthday party in order to confirm, once and for all, if Aria is who he thinks she is. Once Prince Asher is at the party, he comes face to face with Mielle, who is not Aria. Asher is disappointed and leaves. Isis wants to know what is going on between Mielle and Asher. Mielle has no idea what is going on, since it's the first time she has met him. Oscar escorts Mielle away to rest since the whole situation has upset her, and Isis tries to get the party back on track. As the party continues, Isis sends one of her knights to find out what happened between Mielle and Prince Asher. Meanwhile, back at the Rosente estate, Aria is having a good time eating food and thinking on her next steps in her master plan. Her planning is interrupted by Mielle coming home, escorted by no one else but Oscar. Mielle fell asleep after her scare at Isis's party, and Oscar didn't want to wake her. So here they both are at the Rosente estate in the middle of the night. Oscar tries to leave, but Mielle and her father beg him to stay, as it is late, and the guest rooms are available for him. Aria cannot believe that through the entire exchange, Oscar didn't glance at her once, and that night, she wanders the estate, trying to think about what to do. She spots Oscar standing on a balcony, but as soon as he sees her, he turns away. Aria dashes to get her hourglass, and she reverses time so that she can speak to Oscar. She begs him not to abandon her, and she reaches out to hug him and cry. Poor girl. The chapter opens with Aria dreaming about acquiring wealth. During the previous night, she fainted in Oscar's arms due to her using the hourglass in a fragile state. Aria is mortified because it looked as though she was begging Oscar to stay. After Aria fainted, Oscar carried Aria back to her room. He believes that she must be lonely in the mansion all by herself, and he believes that is the reason why she came to find him. Oscar doesn't want to make Aria upset anymore, and he vows not to. He plans on becoming family with Aria by marrying Mielle, and that way, his sister won't be able to harm anyone in the family. Aria doesn't know what could possibly be worse, that she was so vulnerable in front of Oscar, or that he carried her back to her room. Jessie interrupts Aria's thinking by asking if she would like to go outside. Aria refuses, but Jessie opens the window to let light in, and they both see Mielle gathered with her friends outside. Suddenly, Jessie rushes in with news. She has gossip that she has heard about Mielle, and it is about the night that she returned home with Oscar. Word has gotten out that the prince questioned Mielle at Isis's birthday party, and it has also been discovered that the gifts sent to Mielle were prepared by Isis's maid. Aria realizes that because Isis's maid sent the gifts, she actually did succeed in seducing Oscar. Aria decides to start targeting Lady Isis, since she is the one who stands in the way between her and manipulating Oscar. Aria gets dressed and goes outside, where she is mocked by Mielle and her friends. Aria explains that she needs new clothes as she has grown more, and she hints at Mielle's body still being childlike despite her growing age. Once she is in her carriage, Aria wonders if perhaps using the hourglass speeds her growth and ages her. While out shopping, Aria comes across a newspaper that talks about nobles losing business partners, and she wonders if she can use any of the information to her advantage. Aria, what are you going to do now? While Aria is speaking with her maids, Asher finds her. He is holding another bouquet of flowers and asks to discuss private matters with her over tea. The two discuss the last time Asher gave Aria flowers, with Aria deducing that the flowers came from the Imperial Palace. Asher is surprised and delighted to see that Aria is so smart, and he tells her that he has paid attention to her. Asher knows that Aria was the one who advised the Count on the fur business and tells her that despite the rumors, he knows that she is very wise. Asher invites Aria to a meeting that he is hosting since he wants her to share her knowledge with the rest of the nobles. Aria isn't so sure, as she is a woman, but Asher reassures her that he is totally down with listening to her ideas. He's a feminist icon for sure. Asher wants to give Aria time to clear her head and think on his offer, and he leaves. Aria's maids rush to her, asking if she's okay, but Aria is confused by the encounter with the prince. Later at the palace, Rain comes back with gifts. He is carrying more flowers, lilies for Mielle, and tulips for Aria. It is Rain's last day in the Rosente household, but Aria is more concerned with the flowers that he gave her than him leaving. The tulips were grown in the Imperial Palace's own personal garden, and Aria wonders why Rain's master would go through the trouble of growing them and giving them. Aria's thoughts are interrupted by her father, who asks her what she thinks of Rain. Count Rosente seems to want to pair Aria off with Rain to make connections, but Aria is not feeling it at all. Mielle decides to egg the Count on, saying that Aria and Rain would make a good match. Aria refuses in the nicest way possible, proving that she is way more patient than I am, and the matter is dropped with the Count saying that Rain could come back and try again later. Later that day, as Aria is relaxing in her room, Rain once again interrupts her peace. He hands her a letter, saying that it is from his master. The letter confirms that Prince Asher is Rain's master, and it asks Aria to reply and give the answer back to Rain to give to the prince. Rain explains that Asher mistook Mielle for Aria, which explained why the prince sent so many gifts to her. He goes on to explain that Asher isn't interested in Mielle in the slightest, and that the gifts were all meant for Aria. Aria doesn't understand why Prince Asher is so interested in her, and Rain explains that Asher simply wants to use her knowledge. Secretly, Rain knows that Asher also wants Aria at his side for himself. Ah! Aria accepts Asher's proposal, agreeing to go to the meeting. Later, at a gathering, Aria's reputation is doing amazingly. Ladies gather around her and tell her that the rumors about her couldn't be true at all, since she is so lovely. Sarah is there as well, listening in on the conversation, and when the topic turns to suitors that Aria might have, Sarah feels jealous. Sarah, what will you do? Aria has appointed Jessie and Annie, her two maids, as her playmates. The role is usually filled by nobles, but Aria wants Jessie and Annie to be her playmates because she knows that they are loyal to her. Clever girl. Emma is sending a new maid from Mielle to spy on Aria, and so Aria wants to be careful in the presence of the new maid. The new maid's name is Varie, and Aria remembers her from her past life. Varie was the one who poisoned Mielle on Aria's behalf, setting Aria up to be beheaded. Aria decides to mess with Varie in order to get her revenge. Aria criticizes everything that Varie does, slapping her hands every time she messes up. Varie dashes away to get a break, and Aria asks Annie and Jessie to help her discipline her new maid. Later, Aria attends Prince Asher's meeting. She is still hesitant due to being surrounded by men. One man, Vika, makes a point to introduce himself to Aria before the meeting begins. The meeting centers around the casino. Foreign countries have begun to take interest in the casino since the prince has taken over management of it. Aria suggests giving the responsibility of the casino to the nobles instead of the crown, so that when things go wrong, the people wouldn't blame the prince. Vika argues that this will make the prince look weak, and that the people would criticize him for not managing an important business in the kingdom. Aria fights for her opinion, saying that in the long run, the casino won't benefit the kingdom and would be a lost cause. The men are stunned, and they ask Aria how she could possibly know that. Prince Asher stops the men, saying that he likes Aria's idea, as it would give the crown a way to discipline the nobles, since the crown has been wary of them for quite some time. The meeting is dismissed, and Prince Asher asks Aria what she thought of the meeting. Aria answers his question with a question. She wants to know just who Prince Asher really is. Aria wants to know why Prince Asher has hidden his identity from her for so long. Asher explains that he wanted to know more about Aria and that she is interesting to him. The fur business idea caught his attention, and Aria wonders if the prince likes to collect smart people to further himself in society. Aria asks again to reveal his identity fully, but Asher denies her, as he doesn't have any protection against aristocratic families like the Rosentes, should word get out that he is the crown prince. Asher simply says that he is attracted to Aria's intelligence, and Aria is mesmerized by him. Aria turns to go, flustered, but Asher follows, asking if she herself has any idea who he might really be. Aria reveals that she deduced that he is the crown prince, surprising Asher. God, this girl is smart. Asher is surprised that Aria has caught on so quickly, but he decides to let her leave and invites her to the next meeting. Meanwhile, at the Rosente household, Rain has sent more flowers. Mielle tells her father that Rain must have feelings for Aria, as he keeps sending flowers to the household. Aria interrupts Mielle, asking about an update on a warehouse that she suggested he get. Count Rosente says that the warehouse is doing well, and Aria decides to see how things are doing in the business district for herself. The next day, she gets a fake ID and takes Annie with her to the casino. Aria goes to the casino for several days, winning games each day, thanks to her hourglass. Aria is so clever, but what could she be up to? Aria is still at the casino, and she's a little weak after using the hourglass for 3 days in a row. She splits up with Annie in order to find a carriage to leave. Aria is chased down by the gamblers who want to know her secret to winning, and she runs away from them all throughout the casino. She runs into a man with a golden lion mask, and he shows her a rented room and allows her to hide there as the gamblers look for her. The man in the lion mask tells Aria that he has heard much about her, and that he is interested in her. He asks how she could possibly know the correct card so many times in a row. Aria explains that she is just lucky, and a knock at the door reveals that a man outside has dispersed the crowd. As soon as Aria leaves, the man in the golden mask lifts his head to reveal that he is in fact Prince Asher. He is at the casino with another noble, Vika, on a tour to assess how well the casino is doing. They are also monitoring Viscount Vigue, who says that he wants to buy the casino. Prince Asher plans on keeping the transaction a secret from Lady Isis, but he has no worry since he knows that as a noble, Viscount Vigue will want to acquire wealth on his own without others knowing. It seems everyone in this kingdom is sneaky, huh? Asher thinks about how to fix the power imbalance between the rich nobles and the poor lower class, and he wonders why Aria keeps coming up in his mind. I think he has a crush. Meanwhile, Aria is regrouping after escaping the casino. She has finally gotten enough money to start enacting her plans, so Aria asks Annie to get her brother and bring him to her. Andrew, Annie's older brother, has arrived, and Aria orders him to buy sugar in bulk. A little while later, Aria overhears her house teachers discussing a power struggle that is happening in some families of noble houses. Sounds like things are heating up in the kingdom. Aria's eavesdropping is interrupted by Sarah, who invites Aria to a meal with the Marquess. However, before Aria can get to dinner with the Marquess, she first goes back to another meeting with the nobles and Asher. The meeting discusses nobles who have been losing money through lost clients, and those in the meeting are worried that the lost money will lead to power imbalances and blame going to the crown. The casino makes enough money to make up for the lost funds, but Aria is curious about the relationship between the casino, the crown prince, and the Viscount Vigue. When Aria is told that the prince intends to sell the casino to the Viscount, Aria is surprised, as this did not happen in the past. Asher explains that the Crown Prince surveyed the casino and picked the right person to sell to in order to exploit them, and Aria agrees that a noble would be the correct choice to avoid criticism of the crown. After the meeting is dismissed, Asher chases Aria down to tell her that she was amazing in the meeting. Ooh, is Asher falling for our Aria? Isis is making her way to the Recente estate, and she is very annoyed that Viscount Vigu has bought the casino. She meets Mielle at the entrance, and the two sit down to talk about Oscar. Isis compliments a blue brooch that Oscar gave her, and she lies and says that he has a similar one and is wearing it as a couple's brooch for her. Isis comments that Aria is rude, as she did not come down to see her, but Mielle tells Isis that it is better that the two don't meet at all. Isis ignores Mielle, and she makes a maid bring Aria to her. Aria's manners are better than Isis could have anticipated, so there is nothing Isis can use to incriminate Aria. They dismiss Aria, and when Aria goes back to her room, she meets Annie, who has gotten a call from her brother. Andrew has been successful in buying Aria sugar, and now Aria has more pieces in place to get more money for her plans. Later at dinner, the food is not good. Count Recente reveals that because sugar is so expensive in the kingdom, it will be hard to get good food. Aria is glad to hear this, and she keeps the knowledge of her own personal sugar stores secret. The next day during tea, Annie asks Aria if she wants to just sell her sugar by herself. Aria wants to stay low profile and opts instead to wait, as once her investment in the sugar meets her target, she will be sure to get the money back and profit from all of it. Aria wants to keep her stocks as diverse as possible to mitigate any loss she might have. Sounds like Aria could have been a Bitcoin bro, huh? Aria hatches an idea to use perfumed hair oil as it smells sweet to make things smell and taste better. She remembers the name of a noble from whom she bought the oil from, Baron Burboom, and she writes him a letter asking to invest in more supplies in exchange for more money for oil and more oil sent to Aria. In a few weeks, Baron Burboom sends gifts to Aria, thanking her for her foresight, as it made him very profitable. The problem? Baron Burboom assumed that Aria was a man, and he sent a man's cravat as a gift. What will Aria do now? Aria arrives to Baron Burboom and returns the gift. Burboom is surprised to see Aria, a woman, and he begs her forgiveness. While at the Baron's store, Aria buys many perfumed oils, and Burboom gives Aria and Annie more oils and beautiful bouquets as a gift. He even calls Annie beautiful. On the way back to the mansion, Aria considers marrying Annie off to the Baron, as it would benefit Aria to have the connection. The problem, though, is that the two don't have a relationship, so Aria gets rid of all the oils by giving them away to the maids of the estate, and then promises to send Annie back out to get more. That way, Annie would have to build a relationship with the Baron. Later, at dinner, Aria notices that her food tastes fine, while the others at the table cannot eat their food. She smells perfumed oil and looks at the maids, who smile back at her. Looks like Aria is building relationships wonderfully. Rain is back again. He brought sugar and honey for Mielle and a huge present for Aria. A man in a cloak takes it up to Aria's room, and when he takes off his cloak, he reveals that it is Asher. Asher explains that he just wanted to see Aria. He is so cute. That is so sweet. However, Rain comes and says that it is time for Asher to go, and Asher promises to meet again soon. Aria opens the present, and in it, there are pretty jewels and dresses. Aria thinks that Asher is cute for getting her the presents, but she no longer exploits men, so she doesn't know what to do. Later, Aria dismisses her tutors to get more to train her in financial matters. Aria also receives a letter from Sarah, who wants to meet her soon for a meal with the Marquess. Once Aria arrives at the estate of the Marquess, she is greeted by the Marquess and Sarah. They both thank Aria for setting them up together, and Aria wishes them happiness. Is Aria losing some of her edge? Another year has passed, and Aria is planning for her birthday once again. She wants another modest party to make contrast of Mielle's lavish one that will come right after. At Mielle's party, the ladies talk about Aria poorly, and Annie wants to teach them all a lesson. But Aria isn't paying much attention to them. She is keeping an eye on Mielle and Isis, and she is surprised that Isis comes out to make an announcement on behalf of Oscar and Mielle. What could she want to say? Isis announced that the engagement between Oscar and Mielle is finalized, and Aria rushes out. She is upset as Oscar was her best emotional weapon against Mielle, and now he is unusable. Aria finds a box with yellow roses and opens it to find a red brooch that she had given Oscar. Later at dinner, Count Rosente discusses when the engagement ceremony for Mielle would be. Mielle spies the red brooch that Aria is wearing, and later that night, she breaks down in anger. Mielle thinks that Aria wants Oscar for herself. So what will she do? Mielle's maid Emma is checking on her after a breakdown that Mielle has had. After Mielle confirms that she is fine, she asks if there's any word from the maid that she sent to spy on Aria. The new maid, Veri, isn't having much luck as Aria, Annie, and Jessie keep her so busy that she doesn't have time to report back to Mielle. Mielle decides to write a letter to Oscar and Lady Isis, but her maid advises her against it, as several bankruptcies have been gripping the nobles. Mielle's maid vows to take care of things herself, and Mielle suggests putting insect repellent in Aria's tea. Emma takes the suggestion, and in the meantime, she tells Mielle to worry about a new faction that is composed of young nobles being successful in new businesses that they are creating. Emma suggests that Mielle and Lady Isis align themselves with these nobles, as more connections mean more money and power for them. Mielle invites them, and Aria is wondering why Mielle would bother to invite lower-level nobles for a tea party. As this never happened in the past, Aria decides to invite herself to the tea party to check on Mielle herself. Aria joins the party, and the nobles there pay attention to her, leaving Mielle out of the spotlight. Aria encourages the women to have a personal hand in each of their businesses, contradicting Mielle, who believes that the noble women should just manage their households. The lady seems to like Aria more than Mielle, but Aria is surprised that Mielle even thought to invite the women and tried to make connections with them. Mielle has Emma give out rose-shaped brooches to the women in attendance, but it seems that these gifts are too extravagant for the women. The women turn them down, and Mielle cuts the meeting short, also informing the nobles that there will not be another meeting. As Mielle leaves, Aria volunteers to host the next meeting, but the women invite her to a meeting of their own. Rain is with Prince Asher, and he has a report on the Baron Burboom and his associates. The prince has received an invitation to their meeting, and Rain suggests that the prince goes. The prince wants the investor of Baron Burboom to be on his side if they are not a part of the aristocratic faction, as the investor has made the Baron very rich. Prince Asher agrees to go, and Rain has another report about the nobles who tried to send the prince away from the capital. The Fredericks, Isis and Oscar's family, have been pressuring the emperor to release all the luxury items that were held up in the capital. As a result, the emperor wants Prince Asher back home as soon as possible. Asher agrees to let luxury items back into the market, which includes sugar, and the two speak about the person who ramped up sugar prices in the market in the first place. Looks like Aria is shaking things up even when she isn't around. Rain suggests that Prince Asher visit Aria, and he mentions that it would be easy due to his powers. Asher explains that he would suffer an adverse reaction to using his powers, as there is such a large distance between Aria and him. Later, Prince Asher writes a letter to Marquess Vincent's office, telling him to sell all luxury goods at less than half of their current value. Vincent wonders why the prince is attacking the aristocratic faction so hard, but he isn't complaining since the faction holds monopolies everywhere, from luxury goods to the casinos. As a matter of fact, the casino is in trouble, as the prince has gone and arrested everyone inside for tax evasion and frauds. The news reaches Aria, and while she is happy that she was right, she worries that if the aristocrats fall, that she and her family will go down with them. Is she right? In the meantime, Aria is goading Veri into showing her true colors by continuing to bully her. Will Veri fall for the trap? The Rosente family, minus Aria, are getting anxious with the dropping price of luxury goods. Aria's father cannot believe that the price drop has happened, as he thought that Vincent was a neutral party between the crown and the aristocracy. It has also come to light that a book containing those who were involved in the corruption of the casino has fallen into the hands of the prince. Aria wonders if her actions have caused a butterfly effect, and she starts to wonder if perhaps Asher is a secret child of the emperor. Later, Aria gets ready for the meeting she is to have with the businesswomen of the noble families. She arrives at the meeting and is happy to see Baron Burboom in attendance. Annie seems pretty glad he's there too. Another mystery noble, Louis Pinonua, arrives at the meeting, and he greets Burboom. In reality, Pinonua is Asher in disguise, but in order to get an unbiased view on the nobles, he must show up in secret. Aria and Asher catch each other's eyes, and they're both surprised to find the other there. Aria tries to put Asher on the spot in order to see what his intentions are, and she asks what the business is that his investor is backing. Asher's business idea? A school. Asher plans on establishing a school in the capital, and the school would accept anyone, regardless of wealth or status. It would train commoners in business, and in turn, the business people of the capital would fund the school in order to get more business people in the future. The more the nobles invest in the school, the more they would be able to get out of it. Aria isn't too sure, remembering her past life how she longed to go to school, but could not as she was too busy trying to get food and survive day to day. Asher assures her that the school would have a working student scholarship, meaning that working students would get a salary. We love a king who loves education here. Aria thinks that he just wants to give the opportunity to give commoners school education, as Asher already has the funds needed to open his school, and Asher tries to convince the room, saying that the need for talent that isn't corrupted by money and greed isn't needed. The room agrees for the most part, and they continue the meeting. But Aria cannot concentrate due to Asher's presence. At the end of the meeting, Asher asks Aria to take a walk to discuss some things, and Aria agrees. They walk, and Aria is still thinking that Asher may be the secret child of the emperor. They arrive at a cabin in the forest near the capital, but Aria knows this is impossible due to how far those woods are. Asher brings Aria inside and begins to explain the truth about his ability. It passed down in his family, and the gift itself manifests in many forms. His personal gift is being able to travel to far places quickly, and Aria wonders if it is similar to her hourglass. She then asks if Asher is a part of the royal family, and Asher finally introduces himself as Asterope Franz, the crown prince of the royal family. Aria is mortified that she has been so rude to the crown prince for so long, but Asterope is having none of it. He asks her to lift her head and to not treat him as a stranger. He tells her that he will be in the capital for a while and that they can meet any time. He promises to send her a letter, and Aria goes back home, thinking about Asher and his business plan. She thinks about revealing herself as Investor A, but thinks that it would be strange as she has been manipulating the market under the pseudonym. Aria's mother interrupts Aria's thoughts, asking if she is ready for the engagement ceremony for Sarah. Mielle and her father are stunned, not realizing that Aria was so close to Sarah and the Marquess. As Aria tries to avoid them both, a letter arrives from the prince. He writes with the hope that she is doing well, and Aria is happy to receive the letter. Careful, Aria, you might develop a crush. Later, at the Marquess's engagement party, Sarah is happy to see Aria. Aria's father tries to gift her and the Marquess a very expensive sculpture, and Sarah accepts as she learns that Aria had a hand in the gift as well. Mielle asks for some lessons from Sarah, but Sarah isn't too sure, as her tone seems to be undermining Aria. After the greeting, the party starts to mingle more, and in the corner of her eye, Aria thinks that she sees Asher. She goes after what she saw until she reaches a garden, and she is startled by a jacket being put over her shoulders. It's Asher. Asher is happy to see Aria, but he wonders if it's all right for her to be outside, as she was being crowded by admirers only moments before. Aria asks if that bothered Asher, but it seems that our crown prince is confident in himself and how he feels for Aria. Good for him. They continue to talk, with Aria asking if he used his ability to arrive at the party this evening. He answers that he cannot use the power all the time, as it would drain him physically. Asher also explains that he was afraid that Aria would no longer meet with him if he continued to be dishonest, and that when he sees her, he cannot turn away. Uh-oh, Aria. What will you do? Asher gives Aria a kiss on the forehead and sends her back inside. But soon, there is a major problem. Lady Isis has just seen everything, and she is not happy at all. She asks why the prince is acting so improperly, especially when she has been promised all her life to be the next empress. Asher is not impressed at all. Get it? And hints that he knows that she was involved in the corruption of the casino at the capital. After the party, Lady Isis invites Mielle over. She tells Mielle that she needs to get rid of Aria, as she is bringing dishonor to the nobles in the capital. Mielle states that she understands, and she will do whatever it takes to get rid of Aria. Later, Aria notices her maid, Viri, acting very suspiciously. What could she be up to? While Aria is questioning Viri, Annie bursts in with another letter for Aria. The letter is from Pinot Noir, and he says that he will give credit to investor A for his hand in his business. Aria wonders if Asher has also suffered at the hands of nobles in his past life. While she thinks about her life and role with Asher, Jessie has Viri pour tea. Aria isn't very hungry, so Jessie opts to drink it herself. As she lifts the cup to her lips, Viri knocks it out of her hand. Jessie scolds Viri, but she soon collapses. Jessie has been poisoned by Viri. Aria uses her hourglass to reverse time, and this time, she pretends to drink the tea and collapse. The manor is in a flurry, and Aria's mother sends men after Viri. Aria is satisfied with all the pity she is receiving, and she also tells Mielle that perhaps Viri could have poisoned her, as Viri used to be Mielle's maid. The news of Aria's poisoning also reached a guest, so rumors are spreading everywhere outside the manor as well. Aria asks Jessie if she could tell who was involved in her poisoning and why they did it, and if Jessie could spread those reasons around as well. A few days later, Sarah comes to visit Aria out of concern for her. She tells Aria that she will always be on her side, and Sarah reminds her that there are people that love her. People are still talking about Aria's poisoning. Sarah is defending Aria left and right. The Marquess wants the search for Viri to be wrapped up quickly, and Jessie is telling people that Viri could not have acted alone. Aria tells two investigators to talk to Emma and Mielle, as Aria states that Emma is not fond of Aria due to her upbringing. As the investigations continue, Aria speaks with Jessie about if Emma really was behind the poisoning. While they talk, Aria notices fresh tulips. She asks Jessie if she has been replacing them every day, but Jessie tells her that they have been coming every day, fresh. Aria wonders if Asher has been bringing them himself every day. But before she can figure out what to do, Sir Kane comes in the door. He wishes Aria well and then leaves. But Aria notices that his gaze seems slimy. Ugh. Later, during a family meal, no one seems to understand why Kane has come back home so soon over what happened to Aria. Aria realizes that Kane might be falling a bit for her. Gross. She decides to use his feelings to make Kane destroy the family from the inside out. After the dinner, Mielle goes to see Isis in order to try to explain what went wrong. Emma goes with her, and she vows to try her best to find out what happened to Viri. Isis tells Emma and Mielle that someone must come forward and confess as the culprit before Viri says anything due to the pressure to find her. Mielle and Emma leave to find a scapegoat, and a letter arrives to Isis from the prince. What could he want? Aria has just found out that Mielle went to the Frederick house. She orders one of her men to keep a watch until she returns. Soon, Aria hears a carriage, but it is Kane. Kane still looks to be smitten with Aria, and Aria is still, rightfully, disgusted by her stepbrother. Aria drops her shawl over the balcony of her room, and Kane scoops it up to return it. Aria invites Kane for tea in order to play with his feelings and use him, and Kane accepts. As the two have tea, Aria notices Kane staring, and she teases him by saying that soon she will have to leave the family house. Kane protests at once, saying that he will take care of everything. Aria tells him that he is the only one she can trust, and this causes Kane to ramp up the search for Viri. Later that night, Aria works on figuring out who is sending her letters of request for investments from foreign countries. Tired, she goes to her balcony to get some air, and she sees Asher in the courtyard. The knights are looking around the perimeter, and for a moment, Aria worries that he will be caught. But Asher uses his ability to hide himself and Aria in Aria's room. Asher apologizes for appearing so suddenly, and he explains that he wanted to give her a bouquet of flowers. He asks if she is all right after her incident with the poison, and he confesses that he wants to be in a relationship with Aria. Aria realizes that she has feelings for Asher as well, but Asher interrupts her by saying that the person who poisoned her has been found as well. He hands Aria a letter, trusting what happens next in Aria's hands. The next day, Aria arrives to a small cabin, and in it, Viri is tied up and gagged. At first, Aria wanted to kill her, but she realizes that she has a beautiful opportunity. She tells Viri that in order to have her life spared, she must travel back to the Rosente home and tell everyone who the real culprit behind the poisoning was. If she does this, Aria assures her Viri will be able to escape to a foreign country with plenty of food and supplies. The next day, Viri shows up to the home, and the servants go up in a frenzy. Everyone gathers around to see Viri as the guards grab her, but Aria calms the crowd, saying that Viri has something to say. Viri tearfully admits to poisoning Aria, but claims that she didn't want to do so. She points her attention to Emma, Mielle's head maid, and says that Emma made her do the deed. The whole house is in shock, and Emma rushes to grab Viri and beat her. Aria looks on in glee, knowing that there will be even more trouble for the Rosente home. As Aria continues to watch Emma and Viri fight, Kane sees her laughing and mistakes it for her crying. He puts an arm around her to comfort her, saying that no one will harm her again. Sir Rosente keeps questioning Viri to make certain that Emma was truly the one who gave the poison to Viri to use on Aria. Aria puts on a show to beg for Viri's life, thus keeping her end of the bargain with Viri. Viri is banished to a foreign country, and she boards her carriage. That night, Viri's coachmen disappear, as does all her luggage. She steps out to look for them, and she hears rustling in the woods. Viri is ambushed and killed. In the following days, a message arrives to Aria saying that Viri has been disposed of. The day is also the day of Emma's trial, and Emma isn't looking too good. She is being accused of attempted murder, and Aria is asked if she has any reason as to if Emma should be pardoned. Aria claims that she wants no more victims, and so for that reason, Emma must pay for her wrongs. Emma is sentenced to death, and Mielle collapses in grief. As servants come to attend to Mielle, Aria kneels down to ask Mielle if she was the one who told Emma to carry out the deed. Mielle loses consciousness completely, but luckily, Rain is present at the trial. Rain offers to escort them to the nearest hospital, and Rain slips a note in Aria's hand before leaving, saying that someone is waiting to see her. As Aria walks outside the courtroom, she is followed by Kane. He says he is worried about her, even though his sister has been taken to the hospital. Gee. Aria tries to leave as she is supposed to meet the person waiting for her, but Kane won't leave her alone. Asher arrives and he and Kane face off. Aria wants to leave with Asher, but Kane is jealous and he refuses to let her leave with someone he doesn't know. Aria begs Kane to go back to Mielle, saying that she must speak to Sir Pinot Noir alone. Aria and Asher walk off, leaving Kane stunned. Asher asks Aria how she is, explaining that he waited for her outside the courtroom as the judge would have recognized his face. Aria is surprised that Asher can still view her so positively after she sent Emma to her death. But Asher tells her that he is willing to accept her just the way she is. The next day at the Rosente home, everyone is concerned because Mielle is refusing to come out of her room or eat. Her maids are feeling neglected, and they are complaining among themselves until Aria comes along. Aria invites them for tea and tells them to tell her how Mielle is doing as well. Over tea, the maids inform Aria that Mielle has taken a walk. They suspect that she must be in a better mood after receiving a letter from Lady Isis. Aria suspects that Isis spoke about Oscar in the letter, as reminding Mielle of her fiancé might have cheered her up. Aria wants to target Oscar in order to hurt Mielle, but the thought of Asher stops her, even though she tries to deny it. Meanwhile, Annie has another letter for Aria, but she is stopped by Kane. He tries to intercept the letter, but Annie says that it's from the Baron, protecting the letter and its contents. The letter asks for Investor A to be at the opening ceremony for Asher's new school. and Aria wonders if it's okay to reveal herself to be the investor. She is lost in thought all the way through dinner, and finally, Kane has had enough. He tells everyone at the table that the Pinot family isn't a good fit for the Resente family, and that Aria has been seeing the young lord of Pinot. Kane's outburst stirs up the dinner table. He is convinced that Aria is too young to marry, but Aria's father thinks that it is time for Aria to start investing in her future as well. The Resente family sends a message out to all the noble families in the area. Jessie asks if Aria would really marry a man her father picks, but Aria isn't worried about any of that right now. Meeting suitors would take up too much of her time, and our Aria doesn't have any time to waste. In all the commotion, Rain visits with flowers for Aria, a letter, and more flowers for Mielle. While her father and Kane accuse Rain of perhaps trying to woo Aria, Aria leaves to go read her letter. On her way to her private room, she passes Mielle. Something with Mielle is off. She doesn't say much, only whispering in Aria's ear about how Aria killed Emma before she leaves to go meet with Oscar. Aria settles in her room and reads her letter. It is from Asher, and he sent well wishes and a mysterious ring. What could he mean with it? Meanwhile, Mielle is all but hysterical at her meeting with Oscar. She doesn't understand why her father won't back up the aristocrats and Oscar's family against the prince, and she's worried that this could mean trouble for Oscar. Oscar assures her that Lady Isis's other plans are going accordingly, and that she should stop worrying so much. Mielle agrees, saying that with everything that had been going on, she had been emotionally unstable. Oscar flinches. Did she have something to do with the attempt on Aria's life? After all, she was in contact with Lady Isis after the poisoning attempt almost constantly. While Mielle and Oscar meet, Kane is still trailing after his younger stepsister. As Aria watches a group of nobles gather in her home, he sneaks behind her. She asks if she should be worried about the gathering and greet the guests, but Kane tells her not to worry. He instead tells her to learn a foreign language, and Aria is confused by his meaning. The next day, Aria's mother bursts into Aria's bedroom. She has news. Lady Isis is to marry the king of a foreign country. Aria's mother is concerned. This is an act of opposition to the crown in their country, and this could bring war. She wants to divorce the count, and Aria goes quiet. Perhaps her mother is right? Aria tells her mother that she is free to leave at any time and that she herself has work to do at the Resente estate. Aria's mother isn't going to leave her child alone, and so she promises to leave with Aria after her work is done. Later, Aria sends a letter as Investor A, saying that she will participate in the completion ceremony of the academy. When a formal invitation comes, Aria invites her family formally. They turn her down, with Mielle smugly saying that it wouldn't be becoming of her family to be in attendance for the school's opening. Aria's mother is stunned, but Aria tells her not to worry, as she knows how the people under her and the prince will see her and want to support her in the coming days after the opening. The day of the opening, Aria stuns everyone in a beautiful dress. Her mother tags along with her, saying that she told the count that she hadn't been outside in a while. The Imperial Academy is beautiful, and soon, Aria, her mother, and her maids are greeted by Marquess Vincent and Sarah. Aria wonders if Asher will show up, and what persona he will show up under. Asher soon appears in the outfit of the Imperial family, and he welcomes all to the opening of the academy. He introduces himself as Asterope, the crowned prince. Prince Asterope invites Investor A to meet him on the podium in front of the academy, and he is shocked when Aria steps forward. She thanks him for inviting her to such an event, and she says a few words about the inspiration behind the school. When she finishes her speech, she turns to see Asher's reaction. Is he proud? Does he think that he's been deceived? Until the end of the ceremony, Aria can't even find Asher. He's nowhere to be seen. After the ceremony, Aria is worried about not seeing Asher. She cannot find him, and people soon swarm her, trying to see if the rumors about her terrible behavior were true. Asher comes up behind Aria as a group of men swarm her, saying that Aria has a prior engagement with him. The two of them have tea, and they discuss their secret identities. Aria didn't have a clue that Asher was Pinot Noir, and Asher didn't know that Aria was Investor A. Asher asks how Aria has been, as Investor A was an extremely busy man. Aria replies that she was a bit worried about Asher instead. Asher pokes fun at Aria for worrying about him, but he gets serious for a moment, explaining how precious her safety and his planning now is to him. He then turns the conversation to Lady Isis, remarking that she might be planning something. He asks Aria for a chance to propose, and Aria accepts. As they laugh and joke with each other, word has reached Lady Isis about Investor A. She sets out to make her next plot. But what could it be? Cain, Aria, her mother, and her father are having tea. Aria finally reveals that she is in fact seeing someone and that she would like to pay him his respects. She leaves everyone in the party flabbergasted. In the next scene, Aria is surrounded by noblemen who demand to know who her suitor is. She distracts them by sending them off to go get breakfast, leaving her alone with her father. Her father asks if any other proposals are good, and she lies, knowing that she will need the noblemen on her side. She offers all the men tuition money to go to study at the academy, and they gratefully agree. As the men leave to go, Aria's father pulls her aside and whispers in her ear, "The rumors are true? His daughter is Investor A?" Aria confirms that she is, and her father is delighted. Cain is concerned, focusing on the fact that Aria knows the crown prince. He asks when she met him. She responds by telling Cain that she met the prince when she was 14, and that she didn't know that the prince was truly the prince. Aria leaves to discuss proposals, and she converses with Jesse about the rumors of her being Investor A. Jesse gives her a paper, telling her that the paperboy, Hans, received a scholarship and is attending the academy. Aria is glad that Hans gets to live happily this time, and she reads the paper. Public opinion has turned on Mielle. As she reads, she realizes that Mielle and Isis will be attempting to get her, but she is ready. That night, Aria opens a letter from Asher. He tells her that he will set a date for a visit, and he has also sent a small bracelet. Meanwhile, at Lady Isis's home, Mielle is assuring Isis that Aria will not be accepted into high society. Isis wants to know if the prince has actually visited the Resente estate, and Mielle tells her no. Isis decides to hasten Mielle's wedding in order to make the ties between the Resente family and aristocrats. As they plan, Jesse gushes about Hans, while Aria listens. She wishes that Jesse would like someone better, and she plans to whip Hans into shape. She sends Jesse away and lights a candle, walking to the balcony. In a whirl of wind, he is there. Asher has come to visit. Asher is back. He visits with Aria, and Aria notices his tan, and he explains that he was in warmer regions. As the two discuss, Asher notices the bracelet that he sent is on Aria's wrist. She in turn notices that he is wearing a ring that looks suspiciously like a ring he sent her previously. He confirms that it is the same ring, and explains that it changes color. According to Asher, it is a family heirloom, and the magic in it is inherent. It changes color as he uses his ability, and Asher explains that he has also given her the matching ring. Aria is awkward, not knowing how to respond to such a gift. Aria brings up Sarah, and she tells Asher that she wants Sarah as an etiquette teacher at the academy. Asher thinks it's a great idea, but such a move would stir up the centrist party, which Sarah's husband, the Marquess Vincent, is a part of. Aria mentions that if Investor A and their followers were on the prince's side, the opinion would change in his favor. This reminds Prince Asher that a judge would like to meet Aria. She is a member of the imperial family, a single woman, and is not looking for any power. Aria agrees to meet the judge. A few days later, a letter arrives at the Resente estate, announcing that the prince is coming to visit. The estate is in an uproar, with maids cleaning and everyone trying to get ready for the visit. Mielle confronts Aria, asking if Aria truly believes that she is going to marry the prince. Aria responds that she would be a better match than someone who is planning on fleeing the country. Mielle defends Lady Isis, and after a tense standoff between the two girls, Mielle stalks off. The prince has arrived to the Resente estate, and Aria introduces her family to the prince, much to the family's discomfort. Over dinner, the prince and Mr. Resente discuss business and family matters. During the dinner, Aria makes sure to press Mielle's buttons, but Cain wants to know if the prince truly came to ask permission to marry Aria. Prince Asterope says yes, and he then asks Aria's parents for permission to marry their daughter. Both agree, and Aria and the prince take a walk off in the garden, not knowing that Mielle's gaze was following them. Mielle, are you about to lose it? Asher and Aria are walking through the gardens, and Asher is interested in her life and how she grew up. Aria doesn't really consider her past life great, but she is content to let him have his moment. Asher brings up the proposal, asking if he did enough. Aria assures him that he did, but soon realizes that Asher wants praise from Aria, not just a simple confirmation. So cute, Asher. In the following days, Aria receives a letter from Frey, the judge who presided over Aria's case. Aria visits Frey with Annie, and Frey invites Aria for tea excitedly. What could she want with Aria? Throughout the tea service, Aria is surprised that Frey is treating her so well. She wonders if it's a trap, or perhaps Frey sees Aria as a working woman just like herself. Lady Frey asks Aria all about herself, asking about her favorite things. Lady Frey gets excited, but Aria has no clue what for. Frey asks her if Aria is turning 17 soon, and when Aria responds that she will be turning 17 on her birthday, Frey tells Aria to put on an outfit for her. The outfit is a man's, and Aria is confused. Lady Frey cries when she sees Aria, saying it's as if the child has returned. And Aria can't take it anymore. What is this all about? Aria tells Lady Frey that she has another engagement to get to, and so Lady Frey gives her a box of tea before Aria goes. Before Aria turns to go, Lady Frey asks if her mother, the Countess, said anything to her before she arrived. Once in the carriage, Aria decides to go straight home, not really having anything to do that day. Later that night, Aria almost remembers something, but her thoughts are interrupted by Cain. He still isn't happy that Aria is getting married to the prince, but the Count has settled the matter with other households, so the marriage is on. He and Cain stand off, but Mielle is quick to back up her father, saying that he is the head of the household. At her words, Cain remembers a conversation with Mielle that he had. She was just as against the marriage as he was, but it seems that Mielle has a plan that Cain has to adhere to, so for now, he stays silent. Aria notices Cain's new silence, and she thinks about the possibility of a trap as she walks to her room. She is surprised to find Asher in her room. Asher is here to visit, and Aria realizes that she forgot about his visit today. Asher looks like a kicked puppy at being forgotten, but Aria assures him that it was nothing personal. Aria recounts her day, telling Asher about her encounter with Lady Frey. Asher knows the exact reason for her strange behavior. Lady Frey had a brother who was kicked out of the palace. Aria has a resemblance to the lost relative. Aria can't believe her ears. She resembles Lady Frey's brother? Asher confirms that they are very alike, with their features and hair color being very similar. Asher offers to find a portrait of the lost brother so that Aria can see what he looks like. Later, after Asher leaves, Annie brings news about Mielle. Apparently, another maid saw that Lady Isis is writing to Mielle, and that on the last letter Mielle received, Mielle looked extremely happy. However, the maid couldn't read, so they have no clue what the letter said. In the past, Aria recalls Mielle always wrote to Lady Isis before starting trouble, so this could be bad news. Annie reassures Aria that everyone is on her side, and Aria believes that she must be cautious, letting Mielle start things first, rather than striking her preemptively. The next day, Aria is going to the academy, but she notices that there's a giant party outside. She doesn't want to go, but Annie insists, as it is time to hand out scholarships at the academy. Aria understands this, but what could Mielle be doing with such a huge tea party outside? As Aria goes to leave, Mielle stops her, asking where she could be going. Aria answers rudely, causing Mielle's friends to crowd her. Once in the carriage, Aria is uneasy. Mielle has unsettled her, and she knows that her sister is up to something. Once at the scholarship ceremony, Aria and Annie are greeted by Sarah and Baron Burboom. Sarah has written a reply to Aria's request of her being a teacher, and she wanted to give it to Aria in person. Sarah accepts becoming a teacher, much to the glee of Aria. The two women are taken to a private seating box, and the two discuss Marquess Vincent. Sarah tells Aria that the Marquess is highly favorable to Aria, but Aria is a little concerned, knowing that he did not choose a side up until this point. Recently, however, other centrists had to speak to Vincent and Lady Sarah's father, so now Aria has more backing and confidence. During the ceremony, Hans's name is called, but Aria assures him that she is paying for his education in order to do right by Jessie. After the ceremony, Aria makes note of the badges that the Academy students were wearing, and how similar they look to the brooch she gave Annie. Annie knows all about these badges. They are a symbol of loyalty to Aria, and everyone is wearing them in support. Annie herself made them. Back at the Resente estate, Mielle's party is still going on. Mielle's friends are poking fun at Aria, but soon she's in the safety of her room. Out of her window, she sees Mielle greet her father on the grounds below. Aria thinks that perhaps she's being paranoid, and she sits to rest. But her calm is soon interrupted by a knock at the door. It is Mielle. She is standing with her father, and Mielle says that the three of them need to talk. As they draw close to Mielle, she pushes her father down the stairs. As Count Resente falls, his grasp comes into contact with Aria's bracelet, ripping it off as he continues to tumble down the stairs. Aria watches in horror as Mielle screams, and Mielle starts yelling that Aria has pushed Count Resente down the stairs. She needs to get her hourglass, but she cannot get it in her box. There's a flash above her. Asher has appeared to save the day. Or, well, he actually just grabs Aria and vanishes, leaving Mielle at the scene of the crime. The servants arrive, and they crowd Mielle and call for a doctor for the Count. Meanwhile, someone is calling Aria's name. She opens her eyes, and Aria is in a villa with Prince Asher. Asher tells her that she fell unconscious while he was bringing her to the villa, and Aria looks frantically for her hourglass, relieved when she found it. She needs to get back into the past, before the Count fell down the stairs, but Aria realizes that she forgot her pocket watch, so she would have no idea of knowing how much time has passed. Unable to go into the past, she asks how Asher even knew she was in trouble in the first place. It turns out, Asher has a few tricks up his sleeve. The bracelet that he gave Aria was enchanted by him, and when it broke, the bracelet alerted Asher that Aria might be in trouble. Aria realizes that no matter how she went into the past, Mielle would have had a way to pin the Count's fall on her. Aria thanks Asher for coming to her rescue, and the two have tea. Aria explains her whole situation with Mielle to Asher, recounting how Mielle pushed Count Resente down the stairs. Asher is appalled, saying that he tried to stay away from the Resente family because they were Aria's family. Aria replies that her only family is her mother, and so Asher vows to do what he can to help her exact her revenge on the family. Aria questions him, saying that everyone is probably already blaming Aria. Asher responds by saying that he and she will take a trip, and starting from that point, as far as anyone knows, they are on a secret vacation with each other. Back at the house, Mielle is telling everyone that Aria pushed Count Resente down the stairs. The maids aren't too sure about her story, but Mielle's friends are quick to try to back her up. They say that Aria's bracelet was on the stairs, and they try to comfort Mielle by saying that the Count's heart is still beating. Mielle cannot have the Count regain consciousness, and she wonders where Aria could be. Well, Mielle, Aria is in a tavern with Asher. They are greeted by the Viscount, who wonders what the two could be doing at his establishment. Aria and Asher are there to lodge for the night. Aria and Asher are making themselves comfortable, but soon the cozy air is ruined. Asher has just received word that Aria is a wanted criminal. The next day, Aria and Asher leave their lodging, and a few hours later, men arrive with news to the Viscount. They tell him that Aria, the woman he just housed for the night, is wanted for attempted murder. Aria and Asher make their escape secretly through the woods, and Asher uses his power halfway through the ride to teleport himself and Aria to outside. Asher takes Aria on a stroll through the streets of town in cloaks, both enjoying having a stroll without being supervised. They see the sights of the town and they enjoy each other's company. Aria opens up about her past to Asher, and she recounts a story from her younger years. She remembers that once as a child, another child invited her to eat. The mystery child was none other than Asher himself. Maybe these two were meant to be from the beginning? As Asher and Aria are continuing to walk through the crowd, Aria reminisces on another childhood memory. She remembers getting food with Asher, but she doesn't understand how far their connection truly runs. Suddenly, a cry is heard through the streets. A man rushes by, with a crowd forming around another man who is lying on the ground injured. Aria deduces that it must be a pickpocketing, and she reverses time with her hourglass in order to shove the victim and distract the crowd, stopping the crime. Asher notices right away that something has happened, and he notices that her ring is glowing as if she used magic. He thinks that the glowing of the ring shouldn't be gone so quickly, but he brushes away his curiosity and nervousness by saying that he is actually tired and ill from using his magic powers so much. The next day, Asher has a confession to make to Aria. He shows her that he has been inspecting her hourglass, and while she is happy that Asher came clean, Aria wants to keep a closer eye on Asher. The carriage ride is a bit awkward, but soon the pair come to the border of the kingdom. There's a large crowd waiting for them, and the Croa kingdom welcomes Asher and Aria with open arms. Asher and Aria part ways for a moment as Asher is needed on some business. He promises Aria a very nice dinner on his return. What a nice date! Soon after Asher leaves, a knock at the door draws Aria's attention. Someone is looking for Asher, and Aria wonders if the person is the one who Asher is supposed to be meeting. The person introduces themselves as Nara from behind the door, and he tells Aria that they will meet again before leaving. Aria is so freaked out by the encounter that she is thinking about it well into her dinner with Asher. The dinner goes pretty smoothly, for the most part though, until they are interrupted by a handsome newcomer, Rohan. Rohan scolds Asher for not visiting him as soon as he arrived in Croa. Who is this man? Rohan does his best to annoy Asher, and Aria doesn't know how to react. She watches as the two men go back and forth, and then she is disgusted as Rohan kisses the back of her hand and waltzes away. As the two finish their dinners, things at the Resente estate aren't looking so good. It doesn't look like Count Resente is going to wake up anytime soon, and Mielle and Cain go to discuss their next move. Cain doesn't like the fact that Aria is taking all the blame for the incident, but Mielle doesn't want to hear anything from him. Mielle tells him to follow her plan, or else he can kiss his current position goodbye. As Mielle thinks about her beautiful life that she could have in the future after all things current had passed, news arrives at the Resente home. Aria has been found, and she is claiming that she has been on vacation this entire time. When they come face to face, Aria and Mielle both try to one-up each other and make the other look guilty for their father's fate. Aria claims that she was worried her father would call her on her vacation, and so she came back sooner than expected. Asher backs her up, saying that Aria would never hurt a fly. Mielle and Cain are adamant about proving that Aria did it, so Asher decides to clear everything up at court. In the courthouse, everyone is tense. Mielle calls her ladies, Wendy and Medea, to be witnesses along with her, and they all claim to have seen Aria push Count Resente down the stairs. Aria challenges the ladies, asking them to recall exactly when they saw her. To further back up Aria's claim, Prince Asher pulls up credit transactions detailing when and where he and Aria were, proving that she couldn't have done the crime as she wasn't in the right place. The court wants time to examine the documents, and Mielle is furious that once again, she has been thwarted by Aria. Desperate, Mielle pulls out Aria's broken bracelet. Will that be the smoking gun that puts Aria in jail? Or worse? Everyone in the courtroom is stunned by the new evidence, but Aria denies that it is her bracelet. Aria shows everyone that the real bracelet is on her wrist, and she proves it by showing off a shining bracelet resting on her arm. Mielle accuses Aria of that bracelet being fake, and Asher asks if this means Mielle believes him to be a liar as well. He also asks her to prove that the bracelet on Aria is fake, and Mielle can't do this. Aria asks what she would have to gain from the Count's death, and this makes everyone in the courtroom realize that the person who would gain the most from the Count dying is Mielle. Everyone is turning on Mielle, and Mielle herself feels backed into a corner. What will she do? Things aren't looking good for Mielle. Her ladies have turned on her, and Cain has as well. She's desperate, and so Mielle tells everyone about how the prince suddenly appeared and disappeared after the crime had been conducted. Prince Asher asks for a mental health check for the witness, and after all this gaslighting, Mielle might just need it. Aria even suggests that perhaps Mielle and her friends were under the influence of a new illusion-inducing drug. The crowd seems to buy this story, and Mielle's friends scramble to come up with a solution. They say that they also saw a woman with long blonde hair leaving the scene, but the room realizes what was just said. Mielle also has long blonde hair, of course. The judge calls for a temporary break as all eyes are on Mielle. During the break, Aria is greeted by Sarah, her maids, and her mother, and they all congratulate Aria for being so calm. Mielle, on the other hand, isn't doing so well. She has collapsed, and Cain carries her to the hospital while Aria and her loved ones go back home. Once home, Aria looks at her father, who is still unconscious. She wonders who he will choose when he wakes up. Will he tell the truth about Mielle, or use Aria as a cover-up? The next day, Aria arrives back at court with Asher. Everyone takes it as a good sign to trust in her, but Cain and Mielle are less than pleased. Asher and Aria decide to make a good show in fixing each other's clothes and collars, but Asher soon complains that Aria is too close to him once the moment passes. Looks like our Prince Charming is a little flustered. The judge calls the court to order, and she declares Aria innocent. Also, due to the evidence, Mielle is found to be a suspect. She is arrested, and Aria decides to return home, even though Asher is nervous about her returning without him. As Aria and Asher continue to flirt and worry for each other, Cain is yelling at the family lawyer. It doesn't look like Mielle is getting any time off her sentence, and since she might flee, Mielle cannot go on bail. Cain goes to visit his baby sister, and Mielle is freaking out. She worries that Oscar will want nothing to do with her, and Mielle begs Cain to testify for her. Cain isn't so sure, and instead focuses on trying to find another way to bail Mielle out. As Cain is at home trying to figure out where to get enough money for Mielle's freedom, Aria's mother rushes out of the Count's room. Count Recente is awake. But oops, we're out of time. Don't we love cliffhangers? If you do, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't, still like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out at the channel a lot. Until next time, have a great day.